Okay, happy scrafters, I have got a TVZ for you here. This is WaffleMaster playing Terran on the top left of Dreamcatcher versus Louos in the bottom right. Now, traditionally, this is a map that favours Terran against Zerg, and the reason for that is, well, it's to do with this kind of wall business here. Zerg, as I've probably mentioned before, generally need to have one more base than their opponent. So, the Zerg gets an expand up frequently. It's the first thing they do. They go hatchery first. Not on this occasion, Louos going spawning pool first, but we'll see how that develops. So frequently you'd go hatchery here, and then your third would go here. Now the problem with that is that Terran can put siege tanks in positions like this, and can really cause all sorts of problems for the Zerg, because those sieged up positions are very difficult to get a surround, very difficult to get surface area on. Marines can poke around the corner with medevacs flying over the top to give sight, and can just be really annoying and very hard to deal with. So with those sort of easy to siege up positions, it's a good map for Terran. These destructible rocks are also worth kind of pointing out. They can come into play in various ways during a game. You can use those to your advantage defensively if you damage these so that they are almost dead. If stuff does appear, you can sort of hit these with the final tap and they fall over and they block this entire area. So that can be quite useful. Anyway, let's have a look at what these two players are doing. WaffleMaster has two barracks. The first barracks building a tech lab, and the second barracks just about to finish up here. Is going to go straight away for a bunker, and I don't really mind that. You're playing against a Zerg. It's not uncommon to get aggression from a Zerg in the early game, so I don't mind the bunker at all. Going to get a handful of Marines out. No tech upgrades coming out of this tech lab just yet, but we'll keep an eye on that. The orbital command, this is how many times have I talked about this, but still we see it. The orbital command not building any workers. Worker production has stalled only 2 minutes into the game. So Louos meanwhile has got a handful of lings out on the map. He's going to chase away this scouting SCV, so it's not going to get much information. Is eventually going to die, I suspect. A few more lings there making their way across. If we look at the army supply, you can see it's just 6 supply. Remember that lings are a bit funny. Lings only cost half a supply each. Two lings is kind of 1 supply. So a handful of lings going to come up now, have a little look, see what they can see. The first thing they see is that there is no expand here, so no additional command center being built just yet. That looks to me like it is a complete wall off. I don't think anything can fit through that gap. You can see the circles are overlapped there. And with the bunker full of Marines, any lings that come up here are going to have a very bad time indeed. Speed not quite finished for the lings just yet, but it is on its way. So these have come up and had a look, and it hasn't gone well. In production for WaffleMaster though, look, is this cheeky command center down in the bottom left, and I like this a lot. Our Zerg player Louos, he's had a look in here, has seen that there isn't expand, and that can make you nervous. That can make you think, okay, there's no command center just yet, so that means he's putting his money into units. I need to be ready. There's going to be a push coming, but there isn't. Here's the command center, and if that doesn't get spotted, that can be a real bonus for WaffleMaster. A neat thing to do as Terran, if you have an engineering bay, a ninja expand like this, you can upgrade to a planetary fortress, and it just means that anything that does find it actually has quite a tough time killing it. It takes a pretty determined attack, and you will kind of probably get a good idea that is coming. I don't know about building additional structures and stuff down here. I'm not sure about that. So over in the Zerg base, look, we've got, hang on, just adjusting my mic setup here. Oh no, whoops, sorry. We've got bending speed coming down, and that is a really useful upgrade. These are bendlings here. You can see that they do splash damage, 35 damage versus light, and that has an area effect. So these, two bendlings pump out 70 damage over a reasonable area. So if you can get them in amongst marines, they can slaughter huge numbers of marines. They move pretty slowly though, so the speed upgrade is critical. When this speed upgrade finishes, you'll see that instead of crawling about, they sort of roll along. There they go, look. And they're plenty fast. They're pretty much as fast as speedlings. Perhaps not quite. I'm not entirely sure actually. Not 100% sure how fast they move. Move speed 4.13 plus 1.24. Find me a Zergling. Move speed 6 point. Okay, so they're not as fast as lings, but they are still pretty quick. Very hard to deal with if all you have got is marines. One of the keys to success with them, if you watch the pros do it, what they do is they split their units beautifully. It requires serious APM and seriously awesome micro, because the bendlings do splash. If you spread your units out, they're not cost effective. If each bendling's only killing one marine, a bendling costs more than a marine, so you don't mind that. So what you want to do is spread your units out as much as possible so that the splash effect is minimized. But the other thing you can do is have a few marauders mixed in with this concussive shell upgrade, because the concussive shell will slow down the units that it hits. And the key to microing against those bendlings, yes, brilliant if you can split your units up in clever ways, but trust me, as a micro technique, that is difficult to do. If you've got marauders with concussive shell, you can just kind of kite backwards, firing at those bendlings, trying where you can to focus fire them, and you can minimize the impact of them, because they're not cheap. You turn Zerglings into them, so each one of them costs a Zergling, then it costs additional money and gas to morph into a bendling, and of course if the unit is successful, you lose that unit. Now, bendlings have various other uses. If you click this button, they will target structures as well. Normally they don't. They only spontaneously detonate on contact with an enemy unit, but clicking that will allow them to target structures, and you can use them for the classic bendling bust. Now, we are about to see some action here, and I am curious to see how this is going to go. Let's zoom out a little bit. I don't like this, letting these lings get too far in front of the rest of your stuff. You want these hydras in the back as well. The way the Zerg army will operate, and this is a classic combo, sort of bendling, ling, ben, hydra is very popular at the minute in Zerg play. The lings go up at the front, get in the face of the enemy units and absorb the fire. The hydras stay at the back. Hydras are pretty squishy, but they do serious amounts of DPS, so the hydras at the back can gun down a lot of stuff. And the bendlings, let's see how these bendlings do. Some reasonably good connects, so a lot of these lings still alive. These hydras will be able to focus down this bunker pretty quickly if they were shooting it, but they're just walking past it. I don't know about that. Taking a lot of unnecessary damage there. If these hydras are in the range of the siege tank, they will get an absolute battering. They are squishy units, so you need to move them back. Hydras on their own will not fare that well. You need something to tank for those hydras. Now often that would be something like roaches, but lings will do as long as you maintain production. So that was expensive on both sides. Let's have a quick peek at what just occurred. WaffleMaster killed a mighty 60 units compared to only 24 of Louos, but bear in mind WaffleMaster's units are more expensive. So while that seems very imbalanced, if we look at the units lost tab, well, actually it is still pretty significantly in favour of WaffleMaster there. It was losing those hydras was the expensive thing. Letting this siege tank just pissed away at hydras, that's definitely not what you want to do with hydras. They do not take a beating. They are soft units, so you need something in front of them to protect them. They have a really high DPS though. The damage they can do is absolutely brutal, so you want them sort of at the back shooting over the rest of your stuff. It's also really useful to research these things, Hydralisk speed and the extra range. to just to get maximum effect from those Hydras. So that attack, you might be thinking that didn't appear to get an awful lot done, but actually it did, because it greatly reduced the sort of unit count for the Terran. So in some ways, that if you're the Zerg, you feel that you've bought yourself some breathing space. Any potential push is probably delayed by that, because Zerg can generally resupply quicker than anybody else. This is a bit of a bummer. These workers not actually mining, maybe a rally point not set here. As plenty of queens, I do like to see that, but I'd also like to see way more of these creep tuners. By 10 minutes, I'd like to see roughly this whole area covered in creep. And quite often it's nice to get a creep highway out into the middle of the map, so you can reinforce your units pretty quickly and those types of things. So what was I saying? Yeah, a Zerg, the trick with Zerg, it's a balancing act. It's deciding how to split up how you spend your larva, because that's kind of often for a Zerg, it's the limiting factor. You can saturate bases pretty quickly, and you can have a high income, and you can have a high gas income as well. You don't need to spend money on tech structures, because you only need one of each building. And hatcheries, you need a lot of hatcheries, but they generate income for you. So often it's actually the number of larvae that you have that limits what you can do. And unlike the other races, as Zerg, you have to choose between, do I build workers or do I build units? Because you can't turn a larva into both. So it's finding that balance. It's all well and good to have a big army, but if you don't have the income to support it, it's no use. Similarly, it's great to have a fantastic economy, but if you're not turning it into units, it's no use. So let's have a look at the income tab. Again, WaffleMaster just, not keeping on top of building SCVs. Really, given that he has 3 bases, well, should have. This has never been finished. I'm not sure if he realizes that you can just grab an SCV, right-click on that, and it will finish that construction. Anywho, WaffleMaster a little bit lax with actually fully saturating these bases. The men is still only 8 out of 14. It's only 9 out of 16, and really he should have an economic advantage here. Terran generally, on the same number of bases as somebody else, has a better income because they can use these orbital commands to drop mules, which again, WaffleMaster not doing. So a few sort of economic mistakes that WaffleMaster's making here, because he could have a thriving economy, and doesn't quite. Now, these 2 siege tanks at the front door are, siege tanks are great. I'm not, I don't know about the position now. I'd like to a little bit further back so that they can't, so if a bunch of Benlings come up, they're not the first things to fall over. But this is a strong defensive position. You would have a rough time running up this ramp. You'd be taking a lot of fire from these tanks. The Liberator would be pummeling you as well, and it would take a reasonably sizable force to break this. But with this positioning, a row of Benlings in here would decimate this actually very, very quickly indeed. So does need to be careful. The army supply looks to be in favour of, well, there you see, it is just slightly, well, it's just tipped, as I said, it was just slightly in favour of the Terran, with these sort of tier 3 units like Thor's taking up so many supply. A Thor, what is a Thor? Is it 4 supply or 6 supply? 6 supply. So one Thor is equivalent to 12 Lings. So even though the Zerg army looks big in number, in terms of supply, that higher tech stuff from the Terran means that the Terran army has the supply advantage, and again 6 supply per battle cruiser. We would probably also find, if I have a quick look at active forces, that is interesting. It's actually the Zerg army that is the more expensive army at present. So what will happen when these 2 collide? To be honest, I don't really know. We see here that actually the Terran army is seriously lacking in upgrades. So while these Hydras have not yet got speed and they haven't yet got extended range, I still feel that the DPS from this Zerg army is ferociously high. That is a lot of Hydras. If Louos knows what he's doing with this Lurker, they can be devastating as well. You know, there's no instant detection here. Idle workers. So, you know, a few more lurkers wouldn't be such a crazy thing. You send the lings up to sort of distract and absorb fire while you send the lurkers up to here, and you just burrow them, and they would wreck this stuff disturbingly quickly. How interesting though that this whole time Louos has got away with this base down in the corner. A whole load of Terran stuff down here, including these Hellbats, and Hellbats are very, very useful things against stuff like Benlane, because they do splash damage. Now, let's see what happens here. The Zerg army is getting ready to advance. That is a lot of lurkers. Does Louos know how to use these? They do need to be burrowed to be effective, so he needs to move up here because he's taking a piss and getting nothing done in return. The Benling connects aren't bad. The Hydras are taking a lot of fire. He doesn't have vision. These lurkers burrow, and wait till you see how quickly they wreck this stuff. So the lurkers are just shredding everything inside, but they are within range of this Liberator, and Liberators are the answer. You know, you need to scan this, WaffleMaster. You need to drop the scan to be able to see these. Otherwise, you're going to lose your stuff to things that you can't even see. You know, these lurkers are quickly going to ramp up the kills. You've lost the Liberator, which is a shame. But it's a scan that you need. You need to be able to see it in order to kill it. And once you can see it, you can do a lot of damage. This Raven is a detector, so that will help you a great deal as well. So, you know, WaffleMaster has the tools to deal with this. No, the Raven just needs to move a little bit closer. Oh, you're killing me with this. You are killing me. If this Raven is just a fraction closer, WaffleMaster kills these lurkers, and that is so expensive. Now, where did the battlecruiser go? It warped down here, and WaffleMaster is moving in for a counter-attack. Let's see how that does. There isn't quite enough at home to hold this, though. The Raven finally moving close enough to see these, but gets taken out by the Hydras. So, I don't know. You know, they say never base trade against the Terran, and that is generally good advice. The Yamato cannon being used there is that weird sort of charge up sound. It's generally good advice because the Terran can fly away. So we haven't seen a base trade yet in the tournament, so it'll be kind of interesting to see if that is what we end up with. Our Zerg player still does not know about this base in the bottom left, so WaffleMaster, make sure while this is happening you are building additional production facilities, because you're going to lose these. Why not lift this starport up and fly it away? Save that, because you can. The Zerg cannot fly away and is going to lose everything at home. Let's take a quick peek at the army supply. You can see that it's not that uneven. The Zerg army smaller in terms of supply, but does have an upgrade advantage. So, you know, it would be a pretty close fight if the Zerg army came home en masse to take this on. But it might simply be too late. I wouldn't worry about these overlords. Get up into the main base and kill. You know, the main base is where the production is. Yes, you've taken out an expand here, you've taken out an expand here, and that's mineral and gas income that you've removed, but you know, you haven't actually prevented the Zerg from producing stuff, and this army is coming home. Now, soon we are going to see, oh no, the Hellbats trapped at the back is bad news. They're not shooting at all at this stuff, but the Hydras turning up in a straight line one by one is also bad news, and they're going to get decimated if they show up like that. The Zerg army is just going to take a pasting. That was not a good engagement from our Zerg player. Needed those units to be together, needed them to attack simultaneously. You know, turning up one at a time, you just turn up in single file, you get decimated. So it looks like this game is in fact over. The army supply, as you can see for the Zerg, has plummeted in that engagement. And now that the production is under fire, it will soon be very, very difficult for the Zerg to make anything new. Presumably the income is also not in great shape, so I expect we will see the GG pretty shortly, and GG is fair. That was a pretty good game. I did quite enjoy that. There was a lot a lot of different sort of units and stuff in play. It was nice to see people experimenting with a few different things. Those lurkers, you know, phenomenal damage done, and interesting that Louos did indeed manage to clear out his opponent's base, but you know, the big win for WaffleMaster in this game really was this base in the bottom left that was never detected, that Louos simply never knew about. You know, had he discovered that and shut that down, you know, because it's very hard for the Terran to get his army from home to there in order to defend. So, had he shut that down, this game might have been different. Yes. So, does WaffleMaster know where his opponent's last base is? He doesn't. So here we go. The Lings finally do find that base, and now Louos knows why he lost, why it's all gone wrong for him. It's surely only a matter of time before WaffleMaster finds this. He's going to turn his stuff around and head back. We can see the spawning pool is in production, but you know, now that you've seen this, you must surely know that the gig's up. Yes, I don't think a handful of Lings are going to get you back in the game, unfortunately, Louos. Yes, pretty interesting game. And as I say, those lurkers, you know, used to very good effect here. WaffleMaster, I seem to remember, had a particularly bad time against lurkers in a previous game as well. Who was that against? Was that... I can't quite remember. Yeah, so, you know, WaffleMaster, if you're watching, do bear in mind, it's all about those scans. You've got to be able to see them in order to kill them. Okay, I believe I have got the next game ready to go, so I'll load that up and cast that without further ado.